Hi, my name is Anders Askesen. I'm part of Okta's marketing team. And with me today, I'm joined by Goran Gotev, who is our Director for Government Affairs and an expert when it comes to policies and regulations that are being evolved and put in place within the European Union. Goran, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Anders. It's a pleasure.
We all know that NIS2 is something that is on the radar for a lot of CISOs. Why is that, and why is it important for organizations to be prepared?
Well, absolutely. It is in the radar, and it's very important for organizations to get prepared. Basically, NIS2 is the revision of the current NIS Directive, which is the first ever European legislation on cybersecurity that sets specific incident reporting and resilience requirements to both critical operators across Europe, so entities in the field of, for instance, energy, transport, healthcare, financial services, and a few others. And obviously also obligations to the member states when it comes to how they are overseeing and supporting those entities when they're affected by an incident. What is important is that the European Union a few months ago revised the NIS Directive, which has been in place since 2018, by expanding its scope to new sectors. But also by introducing more stringent and more, let's say, ambitious risk management measures for all these critical entities across Europe. And it's very important that whoever is recognized as an essential service operator by October 2024, they are fully compliant with those new rules.
So there's a very tight deadline, and it also impacts all the different member states. And the scope, as you described, is enormously evolved compared to the original regulation.
Yes, and to just specify a bit on those new rules, it's actually quite interesting to see that from the current model where we had 7 different categories of entities that are recognized as critical operators. So, pretty much any entity in the field of energy, transport, healthcare, water supply, digital infrastructure, financial services, and banking. NIS2 actually builds on top of that and adds new also entities. So, for instance, public administration is one of these. In the current framework, private entities only were covered into the scope in terms of incident reporting obligations. Now this dramatically changes. So, meaning central government entities, but also regional administrations will have to comply with the new rules, and a few other sectors that are added into the scope. The entire cloud sector, regardless of whether it's infrastructure as a service, software as a service, is elevated to the level of critical operator as well. Telecom operators as well. And a few other sectors are recognized as important entities, notably, agriculture and food supply, manufacturing, and others.
So it seems like there's a lot of work that actually needs to be done to be compliant with this new.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that pretty much any entity that will be covered by the new scope would need to have sort of an internal assessment of what are the specific cybersecurity policies and plans that they have in place, because some of them, while they are already covered and regarded as critical operators at European level, what the regulation refers to as providers of essential services, they will have to face now more concrete obligations with regards to their risk management, in the sense that they would need to demonstrate that they perform incident handling operations, that when this is technically feasible, they use solutions such as encryption or multi-factor authentication, that they perform also supply chain audits with regards to their technical integration. And then obviously the second category, which is the one that probably will have more challenges, is entities that were not covered so far by the regulation, because for them it basically is going to be a demanding process into really setting up this whole methodology internally. Some companies obviously have already done that because they have been performing in the market, but some others will probably have to.
So assume I'm a CISO and I've already put in place an information security management system according to ISO 27K. I'm certified. Would you say that that's enough? Would you say that that's a good step towards being compliant?
That is definitely a good step towards being compliant, but probably that may not be entirely enough. I mean, again, it all depends on a case-by-case basis, but you would really need to do a very sound, let's say, internal assessment with different parts of the organization, by the way.
So
to
what
understand
are the key stakeholders in that work? And
They're different. So they're different, actually, both internal and external stakeholders that could be brought to the table. On one side, obviously within an organization, especially if we think of larger size organizations, you would have different offices, such as, for instance, the chief information security officer, the chief information officer of the entity, but also, and this is something that we have the tendency of sort of not thinking of automatically, the data protection officer is a very important also actor within the organization, because they effectively also introduce policies and methodologies with regards to the protection of personal data and how to mitigate potential risks related to data breaches. So obviously their involvement into the process of making sure that the whole network and the whole workflow methodology is resilient will be also relevant. What is very important as well is to bring the C-suite, so not to end only at technical level, but to really bring the decision makers of the company, the leaders, into the decision-making process.
Because there's a level of responsibility that reaches that level if you're not compliant, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely, and also because they are also specifically required under NIS2 to actually sign off the entire decision-making process related to the risk management of that specific organization and entity.
So it sounds to me like there's a big work that needs to be done in terms of getting all the stakeholders together and making sure that they communicate with each other and that there's a good security posture and a framework that they can rely on that will achieve these goals and allow you to be compliant. Would that be a fair?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you actually said the correct word, is bring everybody on board. That also means, bringing in the person that's responsible also for the procurement, deployment of IT solutions, the legal team as well, because there is obviously a legal responsibility attached to, the specific compliance process. And eventually also that is also speaking to your vendors as well, and making sure that your vendors are able to accompany you throughout the process.
Goran, thank you so much for taking the time and having this little chat.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anders.